All right, Congresswoman, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you.
One of the things you mentioned during your speech to the legislature just right now was what the delegation is doing on Yucca Mountain. And I guess just to start off with, there's been, as you know, more than anyone, renewed interest in this administration to try and restart that process. What kind of conversations have you had either with the administration, with Representative Shimkus about their goals on Yucca? What sort of pathway forward is there? I know you have your consent-based bill, but has there been any new talk since the administration included that money for reopening Yucca or revisiting Yucca?
Well, I visit with Shimkus on the floor often and express my concern that we don't want this coming, keep it in Illinois, ship it down the river if he wants to send it somewhere. As far as any kind of formal hearings, there have not been any. But I sent a letter inviting the administration before Perry was approved to come and not just visit the site, but talk to the people who have been studying this for so many years, who are the experts on it, who can give him a real sense of Nevada's concerns, that they are geologic, they have to do with water, they have to do with transportation. It's not just politics. They, of course, snuck in and went out and visited without talking to any of those experts, and I found that discouraging. I also thought it was discouraging that Perry has said that we should maintain our key role, if you look at his quote, in the future of nuclear waste disposal. That says to me he sees us as a viable option, which is something we're going to have to fight.
Do you think the governor's done enough to talk to Rick Perry, someone he endorsed in 2012, someone who's his friend, to try and stop that from continuing on that process?
I don't know that the governor can get Rick Perry to stop it. It's nice that they were friends. It's going to take more than that, I think, if that's the administration's push. Mulvaney is from South Carolina. You saw it appear in the skinny budget, more money for it. You see the Texas Attorney General. I don't know that Perry alone will be the man who'll make the decision.
And just out of curiosity, Senator Heller was here yesterday and he said he's going to be the leader on the Yucca Mountain fight. Is he the leader on Yucca Mountain? How close is the delegation working together on this?
Well, we're, with the exception of Amadei, who's been more ambivalent about it, we're all taking the same position. But he's been there a long time. He's not been the leader. You don't just step in and say, I'm declaring myself the leader. You've got to have established a record fighting for this, and it's good that he's on the right side.
During your speech just now, you mentioned the issue of immigration and working with the Hispanic caucus on it. There's been some legislation here trying to address immigration on a statewide level. What do you see as the role of the federal government versus state governments in trying to make progress on immigration reform?
Well, certainly immigration reform is a federal issue, and so we need to pass a comprehensive bill. They had one in the Senate some 6-8 years ago. Didn't ever get heard in the House. We need to do that. But the state, in the meantime, can take some action. I remember when I was in the legislature, for example, they wanted to deny millennial scholarships to dreamers. They didn't call them dreamers in. It was just people who didn't have a Social Security number. That's something that the state can prevent. The state can do like driver's license permissions. The state can be sure to look at voter. We've seen here in Nevada, the Secretary of State says people voted illegally. DMV says that's not the case. That's an area where they're involved. Another area, I think, where the state has taken some action, and this is around the edges, but it's important, maybe domestic violence. You can receive some benefits if you're a victim, even though you're not a citizen, be like the VAWA Act at the federal level. Or if you're a victim of a crime, you can qualify for the Victims Fund even if you are not a citizen. So I think it's things like that that the state can do until we get that comprehensive immigration bill passed.
Sure, and one of the arguments here too is that state and local law enforcement shouldn't be participating in federal immigration-related activities. And one of the bills here would have put that into place essentially and prohibited state and local law enforcement from engaging in those 287G agreements. Do you agree with that sort of thing?
Well, arose by any other name. You call it a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state. We've been assured, and we work closely with ICE, we work with law enforcement, we work with the Mexican consulate to try to help people who have been rounded up or who might be facing being deported. We've got to protect the dreamers, and I do not think that our law enforcement should be doing the job of ICE, and they say they're not. Now, if they find somebody who is a criminal, who has committed a crime, and it turns out that they're not documented, that's a different story. But don't send our police officers into neighborhoods where they're trying to gain support and trust and do the job of protecting those neighborhoods and have them rounding up people, or to church, or to picnics, or to concerts. That's just not their job.
You brought up the investigation that the Secretary of State has launched about voter fraud. Do you subscribe to the idea that there were illegal votes that happened in this past election?
I've certainly not seen any indication of it. You know, this is some of those false facts or alternate truth or whatever that the president came with, who originally said there were 3 million votes cast illegally, hadn't been able to show where they were or who they were or any proof of that whatsoever. I haven't seen it. We've had DMV say that they didn't see it. The governor said he didn't see any signs of it. The local registrars say they didn't see any signs of it. Sounds to me like it's kind of a trumped-up cause.
You also mentioned that you're part of the Cannabis caucus.
Mm-hmm.
We're at a point where we're kind of at the mercy of the federal government on recreational marijuana. What can you do in your position, and what can you say to Nevadans about where we're at in the state of uncertainty?
Well, one of the big problems is Sessions as Attorney General. We're just not sure what he's going to do. We think maybe he's got enough on his plate. He's not going to go after marijuana at this point. He's trying to be tough on crime, so in places where it's legal, maybe that's not going to be a priority, but we don't know that for sure, and this administration is so uncertain, we can't take that for granted. The caucus has certainly written to him, let him know that this is, you know, he's going against the tide of history. We're almost at a tipping point where half the states allow some kind of marijuana usage, whether it's medical or whether it's products, whether it's recreational, and so the momentum is going our way. The caucus has several different kinds of legislation that we're trying to push through, and some have been actually adopted as amendments to appropriations bills, but the problem with that is only lasts as long as the appropriation, then you have to do it all over again. One is to say the Justice Department can't use resources to go after people, prosecute people in states where it's legal. Another has to do with increasing the availability of marijuana for testing, because we don't really know what the medical impact of it is because there's such a limited amount that's allowed. A third has to do with veterans, to say that veterans in states where medical marijuana is legal can have that as an option through the VA. At least the VA can talk to them about it. And the fourth, and this is a really big one, is banking. Marijuana businesses have to rely on cash and carry. That's not good for security, and it's also not good if you want to regulate it and tax it, because you don't have any way of telling how much money's out there floating around.
I want to ask briefly about health care. You signed on to Congressman Conner's bill supporting a single-payer system. It's probably not going to get signed by President Trump. I'm not going to, rock the boat by making that prediction. Can you explain briefly why you signed on to that bill? Your other two colleagues in the House who are Democrats didn't sign on, and I asked them why last week, and they gave me a variety of reasons. But why specifically did you want to sign on to that bill?
Well, I can't speak for why they didn't. I was there when I voted for Obamacare. In the House, there was a public option. That was taken out in the Senate. And that public option was a government program that would compete with private insurance companies, hopefully to bring the cost down and to provide an option where insurance companies didn't want to get into the market. That was taken out. That's unfortunate. I wanted to see Obamacare work out. I'd like to hope that it had been successful. But now so much is up in the air. We don't know what Trump's going to do. We've seen the disastrous program that the Republicans brought forward, and they couldn't even get that passed. So I say let's start talking about public option. Medicare for all. Let's see, how much will it cost? How difficult will it be to put in place? How do you pay for it? I think that those conversations need to happen. And what I really think is important is in places where they say the rates are going up so high or the insurance companies are pulling out, let's just expand Medicare and make it the public option. If we can't get it for all, at least we could have it out there so it kind of becomes an option that people have to buy into it. That would make the system more solvent because you got more people in it and more money as they buy a premium from Medicare. And that's an interim solution.
Mm-hmm. And this is, the whole idea of Medicare for All has become a lot more popular. It came up during the 2016 primary. And so I'm curious for you, looking at who the Democrats are going to run against Trump, whoever it may be in 2020, is that going to be a prerequisite of your support for them to support a single-payer public option, Medicare for All type healthcare system?
Well, every advanced Western country in the world has public health care. I think health care is a right. It's not a privilege. I think that even the most conservative governments in these other countries would never think about doing away with health care. So we'll see what they have to say about it. I'm not going to draw any lines right now because I don't know who those candidates are going to be. I'm not going to speculate about a hypothetical. But certainly providing health care is a priority of mine.
Mm-hmm. Actually, just wrapping up, you told my colleague Ray Hager that you were interested in running for Senate. Have you made any further progress, I guess, on that decision making?
Well, that wasn't supposed to be a big announcement. Ray and I were just talking, but it is something to consider. I think Dean Heller can be beat. I think that the demographics in the state favor a Democratic candidate. Also, he's flip-flopped on so many different positions, everything from Planned Parenthood, immigration, you name it. And so if it's not me, I'll work hard for somebody else who it is. It's hard for me to leave my district. It's a good Democratic district, but it's a fabulous district. Everybody knows where Las Vegas is. It's got the arts district, the university. It's where I've lived and enjoyed life in Las Vegas the whole time I've been here. So I'd hate to give that up, but sometimes opportunities just present themselves.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea of some sort of timeline of when you want to make this decision?
I think it'd have to be by sometime the early summer. You have to do that. You have to start raising money, but of course, once you're in, that whole dynamic changes from when you say, well, maybe I'm thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Appreciate it.